Welcome, everyone, to the PFF Fantasy Podcast IDP edition. I'm John Macri, and as the smoke settles on the flurry of transactions through the first week of free agency, we're naturally going to see the rise and fall of some IDP values as players find new homes throughout the NFL. And even though it's still very early in the NFL offseason, we're going to dive in on some key names who made some noise in free agency that we can provide a much needed temperature check on our winners and losers for IDP. So let's get it. All right, we're talking risers and fallers or winners and losers today, whatever you want to call it. But either way, joining me to help break it all down, two men whose stocks are always on the rise and can only ever be described as winners, the legendary Kentucky duo representing the big three of the IDP show, Josh Raymer, Adam Marcum. Gentlemen, how are we this evening?
Addy, I'm feeling like a winner. I'm feeling like a riser. Football's starting to wake back up a little bit. It's an exciting time. We got rookies. We got free agents. We got friendship. We got beer. What the hell else do we need on a Thursday night?
That's all you need. All you need. I'm fired up. This is no place I'd rather be than right here with Mr. Macri.
You know the GOAT. You know the golf course is where you'd rather be.
That is true. But second
place you'd rather be.
You do get second.
You do get second, yeah. John. That's pretty good.
Well, I'll take that. I'll definitely take that. I like to imagine that one time that we were on the golf course together, that's right, that was the pinnacle of
sure.
Our beings. And maybe one day we could do a podcast on the golf course and talking some IDP. That would be even better. But I can't thank you guys enough for coming on here and talking some free agency with me, talking some IDP as usual, especially considering your busy schedules, doing your podcast as well. I appreciate you taking the time to come on here and do this. But yeah, this is busy time of year. Obviously, we had the combine, we had free agency. I mean, free agency feels like it was all on Sunday night and Monday, but there's always moves kind of trickling in here throughout the off season, and then we're going to go right into the NFL draft. So free agency kind of the focus here, but yeah, I mean, how did you guys find? You guys have already done an episode this week covering free agency, right? So how did you find Sunday, Monday, and yeah, excited about the moves, or how you feeling about things for the IDP landscape?
The pregame before the big game on Monday kind of felt like the main event, Addy. The pre-free agency movement, guys signing with their old teams, that's where you saw a lot of the big names actually go off the board. So it was like before we got to Monday, most of the guys at the top of your free agency tracker already off the board.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit anticlimactic, but doing that episode Monday recapping free agency, there were definitely still some guys that were going to be interested. A lot of the guys we're going to talk about tonight actually signed deals with new teams Monday and Tuesday.
Yeah, I remember posting a message in our Slack saying, "Man, what a bummer!" Like after that Sunday night, because yeah, I mean all the top dogs were gone for the most part. You know, the ones we were most excited about at least, and then also it like vaporized some of the excitement we had for guys like Leo Chenal. Tyrese Knight, you know, that's a guy that I think we could have seen him like be solidified as a top two linebacker, but now he's in danger if they bring in someone else, you know. So just a lot of situations like that. But for the most part, you know, it's news, it's new news. So that's
something to talk about.
That's good stuff.
That's good stuff. That's what we'll take here in the middle of March, John. We'll take some stuff to talk about.
Yeah, for sure, right? Like that's kind of what it is. And yeah, you alluded to it, but yeah, some of the biggest names I think for this IDP free agency class. I mean, Zach Bond, obviously the biggest one, which we couldn't imagine saying last year at this time, but I finished as the LB1 and then re-signs with the Eagles. So that was obviously a huge move. Spoilers, we're not going to talk about him today, but obviously that was I think a move in the positive for his IDP value for sure. But yeah, other guys too. Nick Bolton, obviously re-signing. We'll talk a little bit about that one as it affects other players. But yeah, we're going to go through some of the key names that kind of caught our attention here in free agency. Some of the guys that signed with new teams, others that signed on to stay where they were last season, and basically go over whether we like these moves for IDP value or if we feel less optimistic about their IDP potential than what, hopes we had for them heading into free agency. I believe we got 2 winners and a loser each, so 9 names to cover in detail here from the 3 of us. So what do you say we get into it here? And we'll start with Adam. Who was your first big winner of this free agency period?
I'm going to tighten up.
Tighten up?
Cody Barton.
All right. Talk about it. Speak on it.
Cody Barton. How about him? Dream landing spot here for Mr. Barton, and it only got better after the team traded away Kenneth Murray to the Dallas Cowboys. Barton joins an offense that may have trouble sustaining drives and a defense that won't be able to stop them. This is year 7 for Cody Barton, but he's really only been relevant for the last 3 for us in IDP. But when you do some digging, been quietly solid. And more importantly, a player that has not burnt us when you compare him to where he's drafted. In leagues that use Big 3 scoring, in 2024, Barton finished as linebacker 31 in total fantasy points. In 2023, he finished as linebacker 47. And in 2022, he finished as linebacker 25. Based off our best balls, his ADP was linebacker 48 in 2023 and linebacker 47 in 2024. My
man is consistently right there on like the LB4 borderline.
Yeah, he's boring. He's not sexy. But I mean, at that point in the draft, like that, we're looking for just like solid consistency. And that's what Cody Barton has been. He has hit the 100 tackle mark in 3 straight years and has a very respectable career tackle rate of 12.7%. Barton finished with a career best 66.1 overall PFF grade in 2024. This ranked 44th out of 97 linebackers. Barton has never graded well as a coverage linebacker, but I think it's also important to realize how most linebackers don't grade well in coverage. Out of the 97 linebackers that had 200 snaps in 2024, only 14 finished with the grade above 70. So let's cut old Cody some slack.
Cody's not the only one who sucks ass in coverage, guys. Right. Give him a break.
He's an experienced vet. He's likely going to wear the green dot, and he's a sure tackler. Like, what else do you want from a dude that you can draft as your linebacker 3 or 4? So I'm expecting career numbies from Mr. Barton this year. I'll call it now. Over 95% defensive snaps, over 140 tackles, and inside the top 20 for linebackers.
Wow. Okay. That's a spicy meatball. I think you've already done a little flag plant on Leatu Latu as well. I think you said 22 sacks, going to break the sack record. Oh. By the time we get to the season, it'll be up to 22, I'm sure.
Yeah, we're at 10 right now.
10 sacks.
We think he's going to have
sacks.
10, but it'll rise.
Top 20 for Cody Fartin Barton.
I think so, man. I mean,
wowzers.
there's nothing around him at this point.
It was interesting. They immediately shipped Kenneth Murray off. They were like, all right, we've got a marginally less crappy linebacker than Kenneth Murray. So let's get this bum out of here.
Yeah. And also, I do like the contract they gave him. It was 3 years, 21 mil. You know, think about linebackers we've seen get that like same type of deal the last few years. Josie Jewell, TJ Edwards, and all those dudes have played well, but also played a lot. And so I think I'm expecting the same type of snap share for Barton. You know, a career best, 95+%.
What I think the biggest sentiment here, John, is that Cody Barton is in a nice situation, and he's not going to cost you. I don't think the market is going to change drastically based on this news with Cody Barton. I'd be surprised if he's going anywhere close to the top 36 in drafts. He'll be somewhere in that back end 30-40 range.
Yeah, I think he'll be right around in there. He'll be higher than he was last year. I think people will be actually like somewhat excited about that, and like we're going to talk a lot about him this offseason, I'm sure. So that won't help. But yeah, I still don't think it's going to be too high. Like, no. I think he'll still outperform, where he is drafted. So yeah, I'm in on Mr. Barton.
What do you think, John?
I mean, it makes sense, right? Like I'm with you. I think, value wise in like IDP drafts, I can't imagine he even comes close to like the top 24, top 36, maybe. Like, I think that there will be some, range within range there of the top 36 that he might go. But yeah, I mean, look, say what you want about him as far as being an NFL player and why maybe he deserved a 3-year contract. But the fact of the matter is he got the 3-year deal. they shipped off Kenneth Murray, so there, like you said, there's nobody else there. He's gonna get the playing time. I think 95% snap range is exactly where I would have him as well, based on what this depth chart looks like right now. But yeah, like the prices aren't going to be insane for him. The only concern, like if the prices do get too high for him, is what he does with his opportunities, because he's typically been on like the lower end of production for starters as far as tackling goes. He's never delivered like positive marks in tackles versus expected, and last year was actually like his worst year as a third percentile scorer in that regard. So we've typically seen like inefficiency be stickier than over efficiency, but it's not like we're going to have to pay outrageous prices for him. Like you said, Adam, like this guy's being drafted in like the 40 range of linebackers. It'll be a little bit higher than that this year, I'm sure, but we're not paying these outrageous prices, or at least I hope we don't. So getting him as that fringe, like LB2, LB3, I think seems perfectly fine value to me. So yeah, I love the landing spot.
And sitting alongside the long-haired beauty that is Alex Singleton, right? I mean, you would expect the most efficient tackler in all of professional football to maybe have a little bit of an impact on how you're performing. But now it's kind of like a discount Big Bob Spillane to me. You're really the lone option on a bad defense. You're not a great player, but hell, you're going to get lots of opportunity. Cedric Gray heads sit down. They're going to take like Carson Schlesinger in the second round and vaporize any Cedric Gray hope that you have. But this team has a lot of needs, and I don't think they're going to address this. This feels like the move to address linebacker, at least in a serious capacity for 2025.
Yeah, and that 3-year deal, like that's key in a lot of this. You know, that tells us that they do like him quite a bit. You know, and they got a new defensive coordinator in there. Again, I keep going back to like they're going to want a veteran in that locker room, and this is year 7 for Cody, and he's gotten better and he's gotten more experience every single year. So, yeah, I'm all about it.
Tighten up, Cody Barton.
Tighten hell up.
I love it, Addy.
Yeah, that's a great call. It's a really nice landing spot, and yeah, I think there will be plenty of IDP value there with Cody Barton. So, Josh, you got another linebacker here for one of your winners for this IDP free agency period. Who do you got?
Let's go Jamien Sherwood, New York Jets, one of the guys that re-signed before the free agency period kicked off. 3-year, $45 million deal. Congrats to Mr. Sherwood on that kind of wealth. I want to start, John, by reading Jamien Sherwood's prospect profile on NFL.com, written by Lance Zierlein, very respected draft analyst. It wouldn't be shocking to see a team eventually look to move him from safety to linebacker, where his athletic ability would go from hindrance to help. He could make the move if he can add more size onto his frame and learn to better take on or slip blocks, but most teams will likely view him as a big, scheme-dependent safety who is tough but limited. They gave him a prospect grade of 5.9, which translates to average backup or special teamer. So for all the things that the Jets have done wrong over the years, which is really like just a podcast episode in and of itself, they perfectly handled Sherwood's transition from safety to linebacker. Now, it was out of necessity with C.J. Mosley's neck injury, but Sherwood played so well that not only did he keep Mosley off the field when he came back from that neck injury in 2024, he landed that $45 million deal and made Mosley expendable. The Jets moving on from CJ this week. This to me is like Zach Bond light. Like these are the kind of guys you want to root for. These tweeners who take a little while to find their footing. When they get their opportunity, they ball out and get a big payday. Sherwood finished as LB13 by Big Three scoring in 2024. Funny enough, just 1 point behind Quincy Williams. With Dre Greenlaw gone from San Francisco, Nakobe Dean likely starting the year on PUP or IR, and Jermaine Pratt possibly gone from Cincinnati. Is there a duo that you want more in IDP than these two New York Jets linebackers being coached by Aaron Glenn? John, you had it in your article. Sherwood, efficient tackler. You can see it here on the screen as well. This is something that Quincy Williams struggles with. Sherwood overall 73.8 PFF grade in his first year as a full-time off-ball linebacker. That tells me this is not a fluke. Sherwood feels more secure than all but a handful of linebackers for Dynasty, And for 2025, I think he's a top 12 guy going as LB 16 on Fast Draft right now. Addy, give me that all day long, baby.
Yeah, I think he's really good.
I think he's an actual good linebacker.
Yeah. I think he had, probably a lot of teams wanting his services. But I mean, I don't see any reason for him not to, give us a season like we just saw. I love that duo there with him and Quincy. Big time Quincy fan here. But yeah, Sherwood, man. I mean, he was the second highest paid linebacker in the class after
AAV behind Bond. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, because Ernest was 11 per year. This is 15, and Bond was 17 per year, I believe.
Isn't that crazy?
Just like we all expected. Yeah. So in a draft, Quincy, Sherwood, they're probably both going to be like
right around the same, right?
Top like 12, like
top 20 linebackers,
10 to 15 range. I'd say.
I think so. I feel like you get Quincy on a little bit of a discount. He had a down year. Really, when you look at it, like through 17 weeks, it's fine. He balled out the final week of the season, so people don't really realize that. But yeah, I mean, I think they're both kind of. I kind of like Quincy a little bit better in best ball leagues, just because he has like the big playability a little more so than Sherwood does. But probably in like redraft, I think I prefer Sherwood just for the consistency.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll just take whoever falls.
Yeah, right.
Because I do want a piece of this New York Jets linebacking room, and either of these guys will be fine. John, what say you?
Yeah, I love Sherwood. I mean, I'm a fan of his even coming out of the draft, but like for this free agency period for him specifically, like sometimes staying put is the best thing for a player's value, especially when, the team that knows him best gives him a contract that they gave him. Like that says a lot about their confidence in him as a starter for them, especially when, again, you mentioned it, Josh, he made CJ Mosley expendable. He's cut now, he's gone from the team. So everything that Sherwood did, like just kind of solidified him as kind of a top IDP linebacker right now. I mean, he finished as a top 12 linebacker last year, right? And then was not even expected to be anywhere close to that when it was draft season. It was only because CJ Mosley got hurt and he took over and never looked back. But yeah, I think, if I'm looking at both of them, both linebackers, solid IDP options. I like what Sherwood put together a little bit more than what Quincy Williams has. Quincy Williams has typically been a little bit more inefficient, but I mean, again, like you said, you probably take the best value of the two there, but Sherwood would be the primary target for me if I'm picking between the two, if all things are the same.
Yeah, I don't think you can go wrong getting a piece of that New York Jets linebacking room.
Absolutely. All right, let's go to the next one. Another linebacker for us. This one I picked here, and I went with another guy that is staying put, Ernest Jones of the Seattle Seahawks. So I think, for Ernest, the most important thing for him, for a player, especially like him that played on 3 different teams in a span of like 4 months or whatever it was, between the Rams and then traded to Tennessee and then traded again to Seattle. Like all we could really ask for was a team to give him a stable home where we can feel comfortable that he'll be like a consistent starter and producer for IDP. He's like a really cute adoption pup that needs just like a safe and loving home to treat him like the good boy that he is. Seattle gave him that 3-year, $33 million deal. That solidifies that for him. And then for us as for IDP as well, as we start to kind of feel better about his potential. So, I think if he got like a 1-year deal on a linebacker core that we could view as like a bit ambiguous, then we'd maybe have some hesitance about fully embracing him for IDP, because we wouldn't know for sure whether that team would maybe view him as expendable or not likely, be the starter for them long term, like he apparently was last year, right? So I feel really good about Ernest Jones now, and I mean, it helps that he's a strong tackler as well. He really always kind of has been. Anytime he's gotten the opportunity, he was actually a 98th percentile scorer in tackles versus expected in 2023, 70th percentile in 2024, which I'd say is pretty good considering he bounced around so much. So yeah, you don't have to worry about like Tyrese Knight stealing that job from him, even though I like Tyrese Knight's starting potential as well. But Ernest is LB1 there right now, and he'll play that every down role, which we care the most about for IDP. And even if they had another linebacker, that player likely only becomes a threat to Knight, where Ernest is in a nice safe spot now to kind of be unaffected after that 3-year contract. So Ernest Jones, big time winner for me. Really like this Seattle keeping him on and giving him a long-term contract.
Ernest was one of the linebackers where it really felt like things could go sideways this offseason. We speculated on our pod, John, if Ernest makes it to the open market, what are NFL decision makers going to think about him being on his 4th team in 12 months? Less time than that, 4th team in like 8 months. And so we wondered, is he going to have the market if he gets to the open market that we anticipate? Like, would he have gotten 3 years, $33 million from other teams in free agency? Who knows? The Seahawks liked him enough, even with the surgery that we saw pop up, like, I think the Thursday or Friday before free agency opened.
Yeah,
it was like
a day before.
Right. The agent was like, this will get him back on the field and ready.
We've been waiting for this.
Yeah, I was what? Like, why do you drop this news now, brother? So I think this is a big arrow up situation for Ernest Jones. Sometimes we want guys to leave situations where they're underutilized. We'd love to see like a Leo Chenal in like Las Vegas, if he could shake free of the Chiefs this year somehow. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we want to see guys stay because they've got a good thing going, a la Zach Bond. This is a unique case where it's like, will someone please just sign this guy and keep him around so we can have some consistency in our expectations for Ernest Jones?
Yeah, he was a dude that just kept sliding down the dynasty ranks, after the season was over. Like January, you're like, oh boy, he's still not signed. What's going on? February, still not,
It was that foot surgery. They're like, look, we're not going to pay you till you have this foot surgery.
So, yeah, you're right. It was worrisome. But then, after the news, 3 years, $33 million, he shot right back to where he was. I mean, I still have some concerns with Ernest. Like, I don't feel too confident outside of, like, the next 2 years. I'm sure that Seattle has an out in that 3rd year. So, really, like, short term, I like Ernest, but I still think he's a really good sell, because people love some Ernest Jones. We have, you might have heard of a guy named Bob on our show.
Oh, Bob.
Right, he's quite the fan.
He gave him the extension in our RSO league.
Yeah,
right when the news broke.
He's been spreading the Ernest gospel for a long time. So, I think that he's one of these guys that you can cash out on name value. I don't know that we'll ever see Ernest get back to, what was it, his second or third year? Third year, I think, with the Rams.
2023,
where he just balled out. I don't know that we'll ever see that Ernest again. So, he's a nice little sell for me, I think.
I will say, Seahawks have an out after this season. They could save about $6 million in cap.
He'll probably be fine for the next 2 years.
I think obviously he's secure for this year. I think they gets one more year, and most of these guys that sign 3-year deals don't see the 3rd year. That's just how it goes, especially at linebacker. But for now, John, arrow up for Ernest Jones, both for dynasty and for redraft.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. And keep an eye. I mean, if they, draft a young high capital linebacker within the next year or two, then that could be the sign that there's an out coming too in that year 3. Right. So there's all these things to kind of factor in here when you're looking at some of these guys for dynasty, especially. Right. But for 2025, love this for Ernest Jones and should be on the same team. I would be shocked if it happens again. But
what if they trade him? What if they trade him during the draft?
To the Rams,
You're going back to the Rams because they don't have anybody. That was the one team I was like, that would be kind of spicy if he were to land back in Los Angeles.
They still don't have.
They don't have anybody. They don't have anybody. Yeah, that's weird.
I think even Christian Roseboom left, right? He signed somewhere.
Carolina.
Yeah.
Carolina, right. So, oh man.
I think you're right.
I don't like that. Yeah, he'll probably end up taking Trevin Wallace's job.
I know. There go all my Trevin Wallace, like 6th-round D-up draft wild card picks.
He's got long hair. I like that a lot.
Don't get sucked in by the long hair when the guys are bad.
Can't help it.
Yeah.
Can't help it.
And it works too.
The long hair magic it's real. It got transferred to Van Ginkel this year after Singleton tore his ACL, and we'll see who it goes to this year.
It better not be Christian
Anzalone.
Roseboom.
He's seen
hopefully
it.
Not.
Go crazy. All of them. Even Gardeck had a moment there. You
will never quit Dennis Gardeck, will you?
Oh, never. He should be signed too. He's still out there. So
what?
Come on, guys.
The Barbarian Gardeck?
Yeah. Pick up the phone.
Wow. There you go. Well, speaking of Dennis Gardeck's former team, Adam, you got another IDP linebacker winner from this free agency crop. Who's your next guy on the list?
Yeah, I'm only targeting the best linebackers.
You have the sex appeal of these guys. The name value is off the charts with who you picked today.
Everybody loves these guys that I'm mentioning. Akeem Davis-Gaither.
That
ADG.
well-known linebacker that we all know and love.
Kids call him ADG.
That's right.
That's what I hear. First thing I want to point out about ADG, he was a captain patch wearer last season. All right?
Love that.
On a team with Logan Wilson. It was Davis-Gaither wearing the captain patch. Let's say that.
Didn't they also give the captain patch to Tremaine Pratt as well, though?
Yeah.
And he's kind of a bad guy?
All right. It's come on.
Don't step on the point, Josh.
Was it a special teams captain?
It was special, all right, John. It was special.
But yeah, Davis-Gaither. Just another great landing spot with one of the worst linebacker depth charts in the NFL. Kaiser White is a UFA. And also, by the way, 48.8 overall PFF grade for Kaiser White in 2024. That was 87th of 97 qualifying linebackers. So not sure how motivated they are to bring him back. You also have Mac Wilson, who's solid, but probably not going to be anything more than like a 70-80% snap share guy. And he's the guy that's going to be at risk, I think, if they bring someone else in, through signing or the draft. But for now, looks like Akeem Davis-Gaither is the favorite to wear the dot and be one of the full-time linebackers for the Cardinals in 2025. So thanks to Logan Wilson getting injured last year, we got to see ADG in a full-time role weeks 13 through 18. And folks, like what we saw. Over those final 6 games, Davis-Gaither averaged 13.7 points per game. That was 22nd best among all linebackers. He averaged almost 10 tackles per game and finished with at least 12 tackles in 3 of his 6 games. Career tackle rate of 12.9%. Opportunity. I mean, that's really all this is about.
Yeah. I mean, stinky but startable, man.
Stinky but startable. Bad room. Bad defense.
That's I kind of worry about ADG getting Wally pipped in the draft, but that room is so awful that I think you're right. Even if they do draft a linebacker 2nd, 3rd round, I think ADG is secure for at least this year.
Yeah.
Because they're gonna roll out Owen Papo or Mac Wilson above ADG alongside a rookie. I mean, it just feels like this is the guy, even if they bring somebody else in.
Right. Yeah, he got 2 years, $11 million. So I thought that was a fine contract for him. And then, I mean, he was good enough last season, I thought, for Cincinnati.
That was who I wanted Indianapolis to pick up as the EJ Speed replacement, given the Lou Anarumo connection. I thought when you brought that up, hey, ADG is actually the free agent. I'm like, well, then sign me up for that because I'll take that as the EJ Speed. I felt almost certain that was going to happen, just like Sam Hubbard was going to be an Indianapolis Colt, and neither of them worked out. So what the hell?
But yeah, I think it's a nice upside play. Like, I know the grades haven't been great for Davis-Gaither, but that's okay. That stuff can turn around. And also, like, Arizona's used to some bad linebacker
I was going to say, doesn't this just feel like Kaiser White 2.0?
Right. Yeah.
Mid linebacker coming in to a bad room without a lot of opportunity, or competition to push him.
And I'm not too worried about them spending high capital on him just because they've done that recently. And
it hasn't worked out.
Has not worked out.
A couple times.
And that defense is like they need some other pieces outside of linebacker. That doesn't feel like you got Budda Baker.
Right.
You brought in Josh Sweat. We'll talk about him in just a little bit, but this is still an underachieving defense.
Yeah, we're hoping that Darius Robinson shows us something in year 2. But yeah, for the most part, still tons of holes.
Mm-hmm.
Not a good defense.
Not a good defense.
I like guys on bad defenses.
Yes. Well, and then too, like Barton, ADG is going to be linebacker 45 to 50 range.
Yep. In our first best ball this year, I took him in round 20. That was nice. That'll never happen again.
That is ridiculous.
Yep. I love getting those in before free agency because, man, you can really hit on. I also had Leo Chenal in the 7th round, so
it balances out. The karmic scales balance out a little bit.
There you go. Yeah, but I'm with you. I loved this landing spot for Akeem Davis-Gaither. Like you said, probably one of the most open depth charts for a potential starting job this entire offseason for the linebacker position. And yeah, even though like he's never been a full-time starter in his NFL career, like he did get a little taste of that last year when Logan Wilson went down, but like there's nobody else there for them. And he's been in the league for 4 years now. You've mentioned even Mac Wilson, but Mac Wilson they use in a very different and specific role on that defense where he's more kind of playing on the edge a little bit. He's rushing the passer. He doesn't play that true kind of off-ball linebacker role. So he's rotating off a little bit more. So Davis-Gaither, kind of the perfect player to kind of come in and be that next, to fill that Kaiser White role from last year. And I mean, you look at kind of some of these first year starters, even from last season, right? Like there's obviously no better example than Zach Bond. Like these guys can make an impact. And even though, they're not going to be drafted highly. So there was plenty of guys who I think, finished within, the top 36 IDP linebackers on the year that had never been like an LB1 or LB2 even on their own teams before. You look at guys, obviously Bond, Jamien Sherwood, Diane Henley, Christian Roseboom, DeMarvion Overshone, Tyrell Dodson. Like there's all these guys that had significant value for IDP last year. And I'd expect ADG to kind of carry similar value in 2025. So yeah, I'm with you. There's typically a lot of value in an IDP drafts for these first time starters. So definitely be sure to make note of somebody like a Davis-Gaither as even a potential sleeper come fantasy draft season. But I'm sure we'll be excited about him enough that people will be aware of the starting potential and he'll get inside that top 36. But at the very least, there should still be a value.
Yeah, this is a guy that'll continue to rise up the ranks every month. As long as he continues to, escape the landmines, he'll keep rising. And then there's a chance if it ends up just being like him as the linebacker one.
Yeah, if they don't get any rookie of note,
he'll be drafted like as linebacker 24 to 30.
I'm gonna take him in the second round just to spite you now, just so you don't get him anymore.
Better not. I got a first round pick, brother.
Hey,
I'll do it.
Don't tip me with a good time.
You wore the Captain Patch. I'll do it.
Captain Patch bumps him up like 10 rounds in Adam's book.
Yeah, Captain Patch is nice. You gotta have
it's good. It's good for the team too. The morale of the team, your fantasy team.
It is. That's true. Your locker room understands they have a leader in their presence.
They know.
Absolutely. All right, let's do a couple more winners here. We'll move away from the linebackers here for a second because I want to talk about a defensive tackle, and that is Milton Williams going to the New England Patriots, who, I mean, we're viewing as maybe one of the biggest winners of the entire free agency period. I think from an NFL standpoint, you look at that contract that he got, a massive 4-year, $104 million contract with the Patriots is insane, right? So obviously this is, I think, going to be important for IDP as well. So it's a pretty big bet to make if you're the New England Patriots, obviously with Milton Williams, because as solid as he's been in his NFL career, I think we're really looking at this past season as kind of the breakout year and the reason that he got paid, because that was the first true like high level season from him. So if you're the Patriots, you're all in now to make this work and to prove that he's, that there's still more that Williams can provide and more juice left to squeeze out of his potential production. So I tend to believe that this is the case with him and for IDP as well. The nice thing about Williams from 2024 is that his expected sack rank being a 91st percentile mark is very promising because that is the most stable like pass rush metric we have. It's the most predictive of future sacks as well. So you can look at his production and say that even though he only had 4.5 sacks in the regular season last year, he's fully capable of being among the league leaders at his position in the sack column if he continues to play at that level. Now, for IDP purposes, there's a lot of improvement needed there. Before we're treating him as kind of like a fixture in our DT required starting lineups, despite like the high end pass rush potential, because ideally we'll get more of a floor with him if he can rack up more tackles. YouTubers will see it on the screen there, but just 6th percentile for his position in tackles versus expected in 2024. But part of that is that he wasn't necessarily getting the early down playing time. He played 373 snaps on first and second down. That might sound like a lot, but that ranked just 78th for his position. Meanwhile, he ranked 41st in third and fourth down snaps. So those more obvious passing downs, right? So the point being, there's a lot of meat left on the bone here for him to kind of contribute. And I think the Patriots, moving on from Devon Gaccio and with the health questions around Christian Barmore, like there's a massive need there. I mean, they relied on, who was it, Daniel Aquale for over 700 defensive snaps at the position last year. Like, that's more than what Williams played with Philly. So you can't be doing that again. And part of it is that they just didn't have the bodies capable of filling that role. But now with Williams and considering how much they paid him, I think they'll have no choice but to ride him until the wheels fall off. And we've seen Vrabel do this with Jeffrey Simmons. He played him over 900 snaps a few times in his career with Vrabel as head coach there. So, yeah, I like the spot quite a bit. I actually like it a bit more than the Carolina landing spot, which seemed like it was a done deal for a bit because, over there he would have had to compete with Derek Brown and Ashawn Robinson for those early down snaps, and I don't think he would have won that battle. But here in New England, with the lack of competition, it's all Milton Williams. What do you guys think?
Yeah, we're obviously big Daniel Koala fans. We knew he was a real person before tonight, 100%. I am worried about Christian Barmore. I mentioned this on the Monday podcast we did. Blood clots, scary. Coming back from said blood clots and then having to exit the season once again and be shut down, very worrisome. John, I know you're a big Christian Barmore fan. He's kind of in that bucket with JOK right now, where it's like I think we might have seen the last meaningful football snap for both of these guys, unfortunately. So with Godshaw out, with the questions around Barmore, I wasn't super psyched about this one, even with the outrageous bag he got, because it's like, are you going to start Milton Williams in, start one D tackle, 12-team leagues? That's kind of what I want to hear from you guys on. Like, where is he kind of in that pecking order? Because we've got some good defensive tackle options right now in the league.
I think he's gonna put himself there. I think we're gonna see like a Nnamdi Madubuike type glow up here.
Okay.
And I mean, John's right, all about the snap stuff. 501 snaps is the most we've ever seen out of Milton Williams. That was 48% of defensive snaps. So yeah, I mean, if he gets like 70%, like 700 plus snaps, something like that.
If Vrabel treats him like Jeffrey Simmons in Tennessee, now I'm interested.
And I think he will. I mean, God, they just paid him a boatload of money.
$100 million
I feel like
plus.
You kind of have to get that dude out there a lot, to make him worth that contract. So.
And that defense needs playmakers. It needs guys that can kind of hold down these positions because they've got some fun interchangeable pieces. But you saw this defense get overhauled very quickly the first 2 days of free agency, with this being the biggest prize.
Yeah, but Milton Williams said that he's a beast. I think we're going to see some really good football out of him in New England. And also, like, don't forget, this dude was like an exceptional athlete, like 9.9 RAS type of athlete.
That's why you were always a fan, was he was such a freak athlete.
Yep. And then, drafted to a team that knows ball like Philly. Played well there, got better, shined in big moments. I mean, yeah, he has all the makings of someone that could be a big breakout. So,
okay,
I like this call. All
right, John, is he cracking your top 12 defensive tackle redraft ranks?
I think he can get there. I don't know that he'll start there. Like I said, I think we have to kind of see, how they deploy him. Like I'm hopeful that, like Adam said, they're going to put him in that kind of workhorse role, because they kind of have to justify the contract, and they don't really have the other bodies to do that. So yeah, you know what? He might be pretty close to that top 12 just based on the projection of snaps that he's going to play. And being a guy that can put up those high-end pass rush numbers, we want to play for upside at the defensive line position. And he's one of the best bets to do that right now, where you don't have, I mean, as much as we have a lot of good defensive tackles, still finding high-end pass rushers at the position is not easy, right? So when you get a guy like this, 90.4 pass rush grade, that was second best at the position last year. We want to bet on those guys. So if he can get the snaps to fill in that kind of the better tackle production floor, then it makes him an even better option for IDP. And I think that's what we're going to get from him in 2025.
All right. I dig it.
All right, let's do one more defensive lineman here. We'll go back to Arizona, Josh, for your last winner of this free agency period.
Yeah, let's go back to the desert and talk about the other half of the Sweaty Bros. We kind of hoped for like a Chicago Sweaty Boys reunion with Josh Sweat and Montez, but Josh goes and gets the bag there in Arizona. Former defensive coordinator Jonathan Gannon, now the head coach. I think Josh Sweat, I was kind of thinking about this. I think Josh Sweat has felt like an underachiever in IDP because he had a banner year in 2022 when he had 11 sacks, but then sandwiched kind of in the middle of this 4-year stretch of almost identical production by Big Three scoring 143, 153, banner year, 163, 154 points. So right around that like 150 points per season by Big Three scoring. For context, that performance landed him behind Arden Key and above Chauncey Golston in 2024 as edge 33. So I've got Sweat as a winner here for 3 reasons. We mentioned the big bag, 4 years, $76.4 million. That is 12th by AAV amongst edge rushers. He lands on a team with 0 proven edge rushers. There's some guys there we like. Adam mentioned Darius Robinson. You've got Zaven Collins there. You've got BJ Ojolari. So there are some guys that are like speculative, especially in IDP. And like I mentioned, reunites with his old defensive coordinator from Philadelphia, Jonathan Gannon. So I think had Sweat stayed in Philadelphia, he would have gotten squeezed out by Nolan Smith, Jalix Hunt, and whoever they draft from Georgia in round 1, like Michael Williams or whoever, is going to be a future Philadelphia Eagle. So this is a great landing spot for his opportunity. I think probably the best on the market, honestly. I'm not expecting like this big jump in snaps, though. When we saw Gannon as DC in Philadelphia in 21 and 22, Sweat only played an average of 59% of snaps, which just so happens to be the percentage of snaps their leading edge rusher, Zaven Collins, played in 2024, right around like 50, 55, 56, somewhere in that like upper 50s range, not even cracking 60. So will Sweat play more? Probably, but I think like 70% of snaps seems like the ceiling. He played 71% in 2023, so that is possible. That's in his range of outcomes. My concern is, will Sweat be overvalued now because of this big deal and the mistaken belief he's going to get a ton more snaps in Arizona? Well, funny enough, he was drafted as edge 32 in 2024 and again finished as edge 33. So the market valued him appropriately last year. So maybe they're not too hot in the pants for this guy. John, you called him an edge 3 in your winners and losers article on PFF.com. I agree, but I want him to stay as that like back end edge 3, like 32 to 36 range, rather than creeping up towards like 24, 25. But I think regardless of what the market does and how they value him, he's a winner based on this landing spot in Arizona.
Yeah, as much as I want to like kind of draft him as an edge 3 type, like I am kind of fine believing that he could be more than that. Like he was a top 12 edge for us in 2022. Again, it's going to depend on your scoring, but he's delivered on that potential. And then like in 2023, he was due for regression, but the positive from that year was that it was his best year of his career when looking at kind of the underlying metrics. And then in 2024, he kind of got back to being more of that fringe edge 2 type edge 3. I think he finished for us, it was edge 25, right? So he's someone who can handle the playing time on the early downs and as a pass rusher and be productive. And I think Gannon does want to have that high end workload edge rusher in the lineup. Like even if you look at his Eagle days, I know you mentioned the Sweat numbers, but like in 2021, Derek Barnett played 776 defensive snaps for him. In 2022, he went all in on Hassan Reddick, 926 defensive snaps there. So he hasn't really had an edge who can handle that workload yet with the Cardinals. It's been Zaven Collins who has led them in edge snaps in each of the past 2 years. And while he didn't crack those 700 snaps, those 2 years were also Zaven's first 2 years as an edge defender, right? And they still had him lead the team in edge snaps. So I like the potential for Sweat. I think he's an above average pass rusher. He's an above average tackler. And with the playing time and a good season, like he could be even better than that. So yeah, still edge 3 is like closer to my desired price, but you know, if some treat him as kind of like an edge 2 in drafts, I'm fine with that because I think returning that value is within his realm of possibilities here.
Yeah, it's sad when you're like Zaven Collins is our headliner, the guy we drafted as a linebacker. Please, God, get me an edge rusher who can actually we can put out there for 70% of snaps.
Yeah. Yeah, this is good stuff for Sweat. I mean, I feel like we could see career numbers for him across the board. I think we, like Macri mentioned, like I think we could see him play like 70%, or at least, lead by a fair amount.
I think 70 is kind of my expectation. We've seen him do it before.
Yep.
So it was a different defensive coordinator, but still, we know this guy can handle that kind of volume.
Yeah, we know the room that's around him. It's a bunch of question marks.
Right.
Like, and that contract, that's very nice.
That's
4
beefy.
years, $76 million.
12th by AAV, man. He's getting paid. That I think is the question is like, are casual IDP managers going to be like, oh, this dude is going to be the guy now in Arizona and push him up the board?
It's time to sell. It's time certainly time to sell if you have Josh Sweat in Dynasty, because this is a guy that no one really even wanted, when the season was going on, just because like he was part of the rotation. Like I think everyone's like, I don't know, if you're like in a league where you have to start him, he's a very frustrating player.
Right. It's like he is in start 2 defensive end leagues like we have. He's going to be my defensive end 3-4. And maybe I'm plugging him in if they have an advantageous matchup or I'm in bye week hell.
Right.
But I certainly hope I don't have to start Josh Sweat.
Correct.
And so that is not a guy that I want to be paying sticker price for. Like if he falls and drops down into the low 30s and is going as like a edge 4 in drafts, yeah, absolutely, I'll scoop him up there. But I'll let somebody else chase him up the board into the edge 2 range. That's just me personally. I do like this spot. I think it is. It does have the possibility of being a banner year for Sweat. But what does that look like?
Right, yeah. Like what's the ceiling?
What is the ceiling? What is the actual
12
upside?
sacks.
Right, like
okay.
Could he finish as a top 20 edge, I mean, is he going to crack? Does he have a chance to crack like top 15, So I just don't think
I'd rather go probably linebacker where he's being drafted, or where he's going to be drafted. Those mid-round linebackers are always so nice. When we look back on like the ADP every year, it's like, oh, that's where like all the value is in drafts is, linebacker 20 through 40, and that's where you'd probably have to use a pick on Josh Sweat in that range.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we talk about that a lot, like in the offseason, right? That's one of the big reasons we like to spend our early picks in drafts on those defensive linemen first, right? Because you could get the elite guys that you don't have to worry about every week, and understand that there is variance with the position on a week-to-week basis. But for the most part, we're going to get the high-end upside with those defensive linemen, and scoop up your linebackers later. But I think it depends on your scoring too, because the one of the things that I do like about Josh Sweat is that he is able to put up decent tackle numbers because he usually does play quite a bit. So he's he's a solid run defender, so that does help his game on top of the pass rush potential. But still, that kind of edge 3, edge 2 fringe area for me as well.
Yeah, I mean, listen to some of these linebackers that were going right around where you'd be taking Josh Sweat by our ADP. Jordan Brooks, Big Bob Spillane. You also had Josie Jewell in this range. Blake Cashman.
Yeah, got to have all those guys.
Both Lions linebackers, Jack Campbell, Alex Anzalone. So
not even close.
That is, and some of the other defensive linemen going in this area were intriguing as well.
That's just not the move. You want to get those linebackers in your early rounds, those mid rounds. And then you want to try and find your Nick Bonitos, your Kyle Van Noys, those type players, like, rounds 10 through 15.
Yeah, go find those ambiguous rooms. Like we were talking about, Carolina is a very ambiguous edge rushing room this year with, Clowney and Wanham, and now you add Patrick Jones, and you add another guy in free agency, Tershawn Wharton from the Chiefs. Like, just take your pick. It's the Broncos 2025 edition DL room. The guy you want is Derek Brown, but go find one of these guys that you believe in that could emerge Nick Bonito style from like the Carolina room and make that your, how you fill out your DL room.
It's a great point. Yeah, for sure. Always be aware of your values in drafts. And yeah, if he's in that kind of range where there are going to be other better options at other positions and you've loaded up earlier, then it doesn't make sense. But yeah, definitely something to kind of be aware of when you're looking at these types of players here in those kind of mid ranges of drafts. But let's move on to our free agency fallers now. And I think it's interesting that we all chose linebackers, which I think makes sense since they're also reliant on like opportunity, right? And if we're concerned about the opportunity taking a hit, like with another starter coming in or based on the landing spot, then they're naturally going to lose some IDP value because of it. So my first pick is one of those linebackers who didn't have like competition come to him, but one where I'm at least not in love with the landing spot, and that's Robert Spillane going to the New England Patriots. And I don't want this to come across as me writing him off as like an IDP asset or anything like that, because I don't think it's impossible that he's like an every down player in New England like he was in Las Vegas, but I think that possibility isn't as strong as it was last year, which is kind of the first step in ultimately hurting his IDP value compared to what it was. Now, I mentioned liking the possibility for snaps for Milton Williams in New England, but there is a part of me that is concerned about a volume heavy role for Spillane. And to be clear, like a volume heavy role for defensive linemen and for linebackers are very different, right? Where defensive linemen, we still expect some rotating off the field, unless it's Max Crosby. But for linebackers, that means playing every single snap on every drive. And the Patriots' way has been that this is an uncommon role for them, right? 2023, Juwan Bentley was the closest that we had to being an every down player for them, but even still was like a 91% player because he had those games where he'd be like 85% or 75%, just depending on the game plan. And he finished that year as like LB 25 overall and LB 30 in points per game. So I think Spillane can be better than that if he gets 91% of snaps, for example. But my concern is maybe they like the idea of these situation-specific deployments and knowing that his strength is like very clearly as a run defender and less so in coverage. Maybe they use that committee where they have a designated third down linebacker or they shift Kyle Duggar into that role, which we've seen them do before. It's something where we're getting more and more of in the NFL with these situation specific linebacker packages instead of just leaving a guy out there all the time. And the Patriots have been one of those teams. So there's my hesitancy on Spillane for that's where it comes from for 2025 at least, which I think has to make him a faller in IDP value, in my opinion, right? Because he finished as a top 5 IDP linebacker last year. Will we draft him as a top 5 linebacker in 2025? Probably not. Will we rank him as a top 5 linebacker in 2025? I'd say probably not. So he has to fall under that kind of faller or loser category, even if it might not be like a massive drop off. So yeah, I still think he could be a starter for us, but there's definitely a dip in I think value here for Spillane.
Yeah, it was just Spillane was the ultimate like volume hog.
He was just so good.
Yeah, you know? Right.
Mm-hmm. So good, and we knew the situation. We knew what to expect, and he was delivering. He had like big play upside, and there's just a lot of unknown in a new situation. Then just a lot of just weird pieces around him. You know,
it's an island of misfit toys on that defense.
And also, like you got Tavai still there, who was solid in IDP. You mentioned Bentley, like it kind of hurts those guys. Maybe one of those guys get cut at this point or soon. And then like even like all the safeties, like same thing, like they all can play in the box or they like to play in the box.
Mapu, Duggar, Peppers. Yeah, like
Peppers be hot.
And yeah, it's just I heard a little bit of like NFL analysis, not necessarily fantasy analysis, that said, Bentley, Spillane kind of samey. And I thought, well, that's not great. As far as like just kind of run stuffing, hit you in the mouth kind of linebackers. And so it's like, well, maybe this team is trying to, achieve coverage, bringing in like a guy like Carlton Davis, on a big money deal. Maybe they're in the market for Travis Hunter at the top of the draft, And so, yeah, I do worry about a situation like you mentioned, John, where Kyle Duggar comes down in the box on third downs to help with coverage. And, they have some sort of rotation in mind with Spillane and Juwan Bentley. I don't know. There's just, like Adam said, a lot of uncertainty for a guy who had very few question marks the last 2 years. And so compared to where he was, compared to where he's been, I think it's a big-time downgrade in terms of situation.
But we are proud of Robert Spillane. I mean, we never expected his career to. I think even if we are down on him next year, he still is a top 25 linebacker in Dynasty.
Yeah,
which is like
I don't think I'm dropping him like into just dead territory.
Yeah, no, I'll still happily roster him. He'll be a useful piece. It's just like I don't think you should expect probably shouldn't expect top 12 linebacker numbers from him. He's probably going to be more in that, linebacker 20 to 36 range.
Right. If you get linebacker 2 or 3 numbers from him this year, I think that's great. I just don't think you're going to be able to pay that price for him. I think he's still going to be someone that people talk themselves into and draft inside the top 12 to 15 linebackers, and I'll just let somebody else take that chance. I'm not going to roll the dice.
Now, if we see one of these linebackers get released, though, that change your opinion on him at all? Bump him up a little bit, maybe?
If they release, like, Bentley.
Yeah.
Which they could. I just don't like that the guy next to him is basically just, like, the same guy.
Yeah.
It's okay. I can handle a little bit of, like, linebacker competition when guys have different skill sets. But these are 2 guys that I think stylistically have some overlap, and so it worries me. Patriots, I understand it was Gerard Mayo last year, and now it's Mike Vrabel, so we're 2 years removed from Bill Belichick. But who do you think these guys learned how to coach defense from?
They're still in the tree.
They're still in the tree. They haven't even fallen out of the damn tree yet. So, it's worrisome, John. I agree with this one. I think Spillane is a faller.
Yeah. You almost have to hedge at least a little bit, right? Just because of the landing spot and the history with New England linebackers and their rotations and stuff like that. And you can't, like Adam said, you can't necessarily expect him to be that top 12 guy again. And people might say, we weren't expecting him to be a top 12 guy last year. But let me tell you a little story about a guy that was on this show last offseason, talking dark horse LB1 candidates, and Robert Spillane was his pick. I believe his name was Adam Marcum. Might have heard of him, but I think we know what we're dealing with here. A master in this linebacker projections.
Tremendous presence in this space, you might say.
Unreal eye for talent.
It's true.
Yeah, unreal.
ADG.
Unreal. Yeah. Well, hey, we also crushed. Yeah. I mean, I was look back at the episode we did of this last season. Crushed that as well. We had Van Ginkel in there. We had Cashman in there. Loads of hits.
So
nice.
Same thing for this year.
You're welcome, John. Bill is in the mail.
That's right.
Love that for us. Love that. Well, let's keep it rolling here with one of Adam's picks now. Talking about another linebacker that saw a downgrade in IDP value, at least from what we were hoping here for the 2025 season. Adam, tell us about Mr. Leo Chenal.
Very tough here. We're gonna pour one out for Leo Chenal.
Let's pour this on your computer right now. Okay, that one's still got some beer in it. Pour that one out.
Yeah, tough scene for Leo Chenal. I was very, very excited. I was I was getting a little cute in the drafts I was doing before free agency. I was taking him in the 7th round. We made a nice.
Don't sell yourself short there. The thought process was nice.
It still applies to just a different player.
Because I really did think Nick Bolton was on the way out.
Me too.
I thought there was a chance they brought him back because they love Nick Bolton. But I mean, the path was there, dude. The runway was clear.
And Bolton hadn't been that great. Like, I know he's been banged up, but like, I think he was better this past offseason, but the offseason before he was dreadful in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. It just felt like he was going to be too much, for them to bring back. And also it's like, do they want to invest all this money into linebacker when they have a guy like Leo Chenal and they have a guy like Drew Tranquil on like a pretty cheap and reasonable deal? Just didn't feel like a need, but yeah, It's a shame.
Here we are.
Leo Chenal, I mean, just guy's been elite in so many metrics since his NFL career started. 66.0 overall PFF grade in 2022, 76.5 in 2023, 83.6 in 2024. So just got better every single year. 0.252 career points per snap. Like Josh referenced earlier, this is elite. point per snap number, 13.9% career tackle rate. So just all the signs you want to see from a young linebacker. It's one of those types that we just want to see him get more snaps because the guy produces, does a lot with the little. But we're going to have to put it on hold.
We're going to have to put the genie back in the bottle and uncork this thing next offseason.
Now, there is a chance that maybe this guy overtakes Drew Tranquil, but that just feels unlikely. But yeah, next offseason, wheels up.
Up, baby.
Yeah, it's going to be a good time.
Chenal season is uncanceled.
And, Kansas City might have just screwed themselves to where they can't pay this dude. Like, I think he's going to have a very competitive market. So unless they want to, like, franchise tag this guy, I think Chenal we may be talking about him on next year's edition of the show.
Ooh, baby, that'll be fun.
I like that. Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I think that's a great call as far as looking ahead for him in free agency because, yeah, they might not be able to keep him. And look, this offseason, there was definitely hope for me as well with Chenal. I always leaned kind of Bolton kind of being back in Kansas City, but on the chance that he wasn't, like that alone was worth being excited about Leo Chenal. I mean, this is a guy who we saw deliver as kind of like a high-end tackler in college. We saw it in his limited opportunities so far in the NFL. The problem was that like both times, he kind of profiled more as like this early down specialist than that every down linebacker. So I think that kind of ultimately hurt like his chances of Spags feeling comfortable enough from moving on from Bolton to replace him with Chenal. But great coverage grade, like you said, but at the same time, like he only played 85 total defensive snaps on third and fourth down all year across like 17 games, but 359 on first and second down, right? So they've kind of pigeonholed him in that like specific early down role, which he's a very, very good at, mind you, like 90.2 run defense grade. That was fourth best among linebackers, but yeah, it wasn't impossible that he became an every down player, and I don't think it's impossible for the future either. So I just think the Chiefs have been clearly telling us how they view him in that defense now.
You should be mad, Leo Chenal. Chiefs are messing up your money, bro.
Seriously.
You're the best linebacker in the group. They're holding you back. Go get your bag next offseason.
Go get your bag, Leo Chenal. And we'll be rooting for you every step of the way, bud.
I like it. All right, let's wrap up with another linebacker who kind of got Wally pipped. Is that the word here that we like to use? Jack Sanborn of the Dallas Cowboys is your last pick here, Josh. What were your hopes here for Sanborn landing with Dallas?
Man, just another heartbreaker, John. On our show, we begged the Raiders, please, Pete Carroll, please, Tom Brady, please, Mark Davis, with your $4 haircut. Just go sign Jack Sanborn. Let him rack up 150 tackles like fellow white linebacker Robert Spillane has done in the past 2 seasons. And when he landed in Dallas, I was like, okay, this isn't Vegas, but it's pretty good. Overshown is recovering from a nasty injury. Eric Kendricks is gone. Then they went and fricked up and traded for Kenneth Murray. So for as short as Leo Chenal's season was, Sanborn LB1 season was somehow even shorter. Here's why this sucks, John. Sanborn's points per snap, Addie mentioned this with Leo Chenal, were elite in 2023, 0.276. And in 2022, it was even better, 0.32. For context, Zaire Franklin, the LB1 in 2024, 0.253 points per snap. In 2023, LB1 Bobby Okereke was 0.258. So again, you can see Sanborn's 0.276 and 0.32 points per snap is like breaking the chart if you were to chart this on a graphic. Now, Sanborn's efficiency absolutely would have gone down had he played near 1,100 snaps like those guys I just mentioned, but you can see the path to a top 12 finish with a guy as efficient as Jack Sanborn. But enter Kenneth Murray, Jace Abbey's favorite player, who played 93% of snaps in Tennessee in 2024 and 94% in Los Angeles in 2023 in the games he was active for. Which of these guys do you think is going to start as the LB1? The former first rounder they traded for, or the guy whose contract details still haven't been released, which is never a good thing. The silver lining here is that Murray is absolute, but Whether you're looking at tackles versus expected, PFF grades, or watching him with your human eyeballs, which I would not advise at any time. So although he is a loser here on March 13th, Sanborn's path to upside is obscured, but not gone completely, John. I'll be sprinkling him in a little bit as my 6th-rounder in DF drafts. That's how much I think Sanborn season could be uncanceled because it's Kenneth Murray.
Wow, spicy.
I'm just saying.
It can happen.
Look, it could definitely happen, right? It's just it's funny, right? Because like we as like an IDP community, we get attached to these like linebackers on like a small sample size of like really great production. We all do it, but it's like there's this thirst for wanting to see that production across an entire season, even though like that's rarely how it works out. Most guys regress closer to the mean, like you say, Josh. But as far as like efficiency goes and stuff like that, but at least we'd have known, right? And I think I'm with you. I think there is still some hope for Sanborn because I think the IDP community definitely has a lot of hope in him. I still get questions about him all the time, just based on that kind of post Roquan Smith stretch in 2022, right? And then, we got blue balled with him in the 2023 offseason when the Bears signed, I can't remember who it was first, either TJ Edwards or Tremaine Edmonds, but one came in and there was still room for Sanborn to be the LB2. But then like not even an hour later, they made the second big splash by bringing in the other guy and basically quickly put an end to that. So, even this Dallas signing, I think there was hope that, and there still is probably hope that he can compete with Damone Clark and Maris Pufau. And then they go and trade for Kenneth Murray, but while Overshown recovers from injury. But it is a new defensive coordinator, and it is Matt Eberflus, who was with Sanborn in Chicago. So maybe he ends up liking him in that LB2 role over Lufau and Clark, but maybe still just even as a placeholder until Overshown comes back. And, considering Sanborn doesn't have necessarily that starting experience, it's not a guarantee, but he's at least in contention. So I get the hope for sure.
Yeah, I should point out, D-Up 6th-round draft. You have 6 players on your team, 60 total players drafted. This is a shoot your shot, draft a guy. You were taking Leo Chenal. I've sprinkled in Ivan Pace Jr., some Trevin Wallace, some Peyton Wilson. It's just this guy with like this asymmetrical upside who can completely tank your team or can take you into that like top 1% of teams drafted because nobody else has Jack Sanborn.
Low ownership. Those are the players, right?
So in that type of format, in no other draft should you be taking Jack Sanborn as your 6th overall pick. But I think he represents a nice like bench stash or a guy you like put a star next to on waivers if he's out there week 1, just because I think even though this was not great optics for his IDP value to see Kenneth Murray come over via trade, I think it speaks to me a little bit more about replacing both Kendricks and Overshown for 2025 potentially. So
yeah, because the Overshown injury was like pretty serious.
Pretty gnarly. Yeah. And so I am not just penciling in DeMarvion Overshown to come back and resume a full-time role. I could see him starting the year on PUP, starting the year on IR. And
not playing at all.
Maybe he's back, Halloween, Thanksgiving, and gets folded in a little bit down the stretch. I also don't know how good this Cowboys team is going to be, so how quickly are they going to rush this guy back?
Because Overshown also tore his ACL as a rookie. Right, so this is his second ACL tear in 2.5 years.
Right, so not great. Great. I think, John, you mentioned the familiarity with Matt Eberflus. That is another big selling point for me because so many times, like we talked about with Kaiser White on our show coming in with Jonathan Gannon to the Arizona Cardinals, these coaches bring over a linebacker who can translate their defense for the rest of that unit. And so if there's any leg up in this situation here, it is the fact that Jack Sanborn knows what's going on in a Matt Eberflus defense. So we'll see how it plays out.
That's a bad room. I mean, that's a terrible room.
Kenneth Murray's bad. Leofau's bad. Damone Clark is a whole lot of nothing. Probably. Yeah, so I think Jack Sanborn, you can make the case, is the best linebacker out of this 4. We'll see where Kendricks lands. He's still out there available as we record this.
And then injuries always happen. He could have stretches,
Yep.
And yeah, he was like elite. Like I'll never forget that 6 or 7 week stretch I had with Sanborn and 2022.
We were talking with Sigmund Bloom. He was saying, like, go see if you can get a second-round pick for Sanborn.
Oh, there were some. I remember seeing some crazy trades that offseason. People believe, but you're right, man. That was devastating when they signed Tremaine Edmonds and then DJ Edwards.
Yeah,
that was bad.
That was hateful. That was
I know,
not
just
called
like
for.
No reason to do that. Like, come on, you gave Tremaine Edmonds almost 100. Like, would they give him 72 million, something like that?
He is second in AAV.
insane.
Behind Roquan Smith.
That's crazy.
Isn't that insane?
That's crazy.
Yeah, and he's not even the best linebacker on that team.
Exactly. Yeah, he's
got to be getting in cut range, Tremaine.
No, I'm sorry. Fred Warner is technically second. So it's Roquan at 20, Fred at basically 19, Tremaine Edmonds at 18. So one of these things is not like the other. Now, we'll say Zach Bond is fourth. I think he belongs to be up there, but Nick Bolton's fifth.
Wow.
So, of course, those guys just signed new deals, so inflation and whatnot. But, yeah, man, I'm holding a candle for Jack Sanborn. I don't think this is lights out for his IDP value.
Could also see Dallas, though, take a linebacker high. Like, what if they took Jahad Campbell? That would be
their offense needs some help, so that's what gives me hope that they trade up for Esh and Ginty or take a Tet McMillan or something like that in the first round. But, yeah, I mean, if Jahad Campbell goes there to them at 15 in the first round, I mean, it's Jover for all these guys. Jahad Campbell is going to be a top 15, 16 linebacker probably. Drafted,
Yeah.
So
CLB1 for you, John, so far?
Yes, he is. Jahad Campbell looks very good. I'm very excited about him.
I agree. I think anything else than that is just overthinking it.
Yep. Absolutely, man. But there you go. So Jack Sanborn, still a loser, but a loser with hope. Story of my life. But
aren't we all just losers with hope, John?
That's it.
Nick Bolton is the real loser of all this, though. Let's not forget that he's the true loser of this.
Yeah, Nick Bolton really put us think on things. He could have gone elsewhere. He could have gone to like a Las Vegas or something like that, but no, had to stick with this.
So afraid. Couldn't leave home. Had to come back.
Scared to compete.
Runner, Kansas City Chiefs.
Let's get a Nick Bolton jersey for the wall and see if some sort of horrible fate befalls Nick Bolton.
Yeah.
One of us at least has Nick Bolton in a league with that just gave him a cheap extension, but an extension. So let's not try to kill him.
All right, Judas.
That's all right. I'm fine with it. We got plenty of linebackers out there, but that's a wrap for us this week. I can't thank everyone enough for tuning in. And if you're watching on the YouTube, please make sure you like and subscribe. And I'd greatly appreciate that. And it helps the show a ton. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, feel free to leave a 5-star review, as we would love that as well. Speaking of love, Addy, Joshy, can't thank you guys enough for taking the time to come on the show. It means so much to me, especially, again, considering how busy you guys are with your own podcast and pumping out quality content over there at the IDP show. So thank you both. I really do appreciate it.
We always got time for you, baby.
That's right. Always got time for you, John. You're one of our favorites. You're doing great work. Folks, make sure you're subscribed over at PFF.com. John's off-season work is second to none. Listen to the pod, 5-star review. For God's sake, hit the subscribe, hit the like button. Do this man a favor. He's doing the Lord's work for you here in the middle of March. So anytime you want us back, John, we're here, baby.
I appreciate that. Yes. And thank you for the plug and for yourselves as well. Please let everybody know what you guys got going on over at the IDP show to fuel the minds of the IDP lovers.
Hey, before we do that, John, any statement you want to make on deleting the Milton Williams tweet to Carolina?
I knew you weren't going to let that go.
Any statement? You're right.
You
want to look into the camera and apologize?
I can't believe anybody even caught that. I mean, I put it out there. Because
I might have notifications on, brother.
Might have the notifications.
You got to be a little more careful.
This guy is always watching.
That's a good point. Yeah, I screwed up. I got ahead of myself, and I
got caught with your hand in the cookie jar.
Deeply sorry, and it'll never probably happen again.
Now he's not going to let us plug our stuff, you jerk.
No, who cares? IDPshow.com.
The IDPshow.com.
Whatever.
That's all you really need to know. We got 3 shows rocking and rolling this off season: the IDP show, IDP after show, and IDP draft. So subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Absolutely. Always great content over there. As for me, I've written up like 5 winners and 5 losers of IDP free agency over on PFF.com. We've actually covered all the winners on this show, but there are some other names in there that we didn't cover, so you can check that out now if you like. And then next week, for the first time ever, I'll be releasing my prospect model for rookie edge defenders in article form. That'll have like detailed breakdowns, some comps, some success rates. That'll be followed then by my linebacker prospect model, running back prospect model, all coming out next week. And I'll be covering the incoming rookie linebacker class with the thriller from the Upper Peninsula, Kyle Bellyfuel, on the pod next week. So going to be busy AF in here in draft season for me and at PFF. So hope you'll join us for that ride. And until next time, peace out.